it in turns. Okay, what? Just let's just try to let's just calm down the situation. We got to calm
Let's
down.
get our closing moments because I mean we need to wrap this up.
Yeah.
But on the whole, let's go to assessments. Given the chairman of the commission's address today.
Yes, I was going to say that although the chairman identified several challenges, the reports of which he said he received, I didn't quite get to hear what other things he will do to make the situation better. For instance,
except that they're investigating some of these matters.
Well, I don't know whether he needs to investigate the fact that INEC personnel simply didn't show up or showed up very late. He doesn't need to investigate that. This is a fact and everybody is concerned about that. What would he do differently? I'm very concerned about that because, if people arrived at polling stations, if people arrived at polling stations, 2-3 hours afterwards, INEC personnel hadn't shown up. In fact, Professor Oyewole was telling me, when we were coming to the studio, that in fact, in some polling stations, voting didn't happen until 6 p.m. Simply because INEC personnel didn't show up. And when they showed up, it took them another 1 hour to kit up and all that. So I think that, we need to hold INEC to the highest possible standards of performance, and that hasn't been the case. We've had, sometimes we forget this, we have had 4 full years to prepare for this election, and the election still seems to surprise us. It shouldn't be so. As we speak, constitutionally, another election will hold in 2019. That shouldn't be news to us. So we've actually had sufficient time to get all of these logistical things right. We didn't do that. So what I think is that in the final analysis, INEC has the responsibility to make sure they conduct a free, credible, and transparent process. And I suggested, in earlier shows, on Channels TV, that using manual identification shouldn't be seen as incompatible with using the card readers. And you see, many people made these arguments, but INEC in its own wisdom didn't buy this until reality kicked in eventually. So I think that going forward, because I think in another 2 weeks or so, we are going to have the gubernatorial elections.
Yes.
We need to make sure that INEC has learned sufficiently. My suggestion would be to make sure that in addition to the card readers, let us use alternative modalities of identification and accreditation.
Mr. Naji.
I would first and foremost commend INEC for considering the use of card readers to depersonalize at least partially depersonalize the electoral process. And I'm very keen at looking at towards a day when the entire process will be depersonalized. The Electoral Act as it is now forbids electronic voting, but that should be on the card. And finally, I would not want to subscribe to a situation where the chairman of INEC, based on perhaps some of the reports he received now, think that INEC has done marvelously very well, even if they are looking at percentages, because there have been so many, gaps. More importantly, before I rest my case, is the issue of feedback mechanism. There have been some cases of force majeure, like yesterday. The rains was so heavy in some places that some voters couldn't come out. But because the electoral officers came out in good time to do accreditation and so on, they insisted they must close by 4 o'clock, even when the rain disrupted.
You think that should change?
That should change. There should be a mechanism whereby somebody in situ should be able to take decisions in arrangement with all the party agents to show that.
I think that's what the SPO is coming.
Yes, we are dealing with human beings.
Right.
Yeah.
So feedback mechanism is important.
I believe the whole process demonstrates the victory of Nigerian people. For me, that is one thing that has come out all through this process. The will of the Nigerian people to seize the process and make it their own, to become the people that will determine who rules them. And that is what democracy is all about. Government of the people, by the people, unto the people. INEC, of course, as the election management body, needs to up its game. But I want to side with my colleague here that we must move forward into the world where technology drives everything. INEC has given a situational report about the statistics of failures. That is as of today. maybe when they now get all the full reports, it may give them the full measure. But I think we must separate the operational logistical failures from the failures of the card. And if we band it together, then we give the card reader process a bad name. From the INEC statistics, which the chairman has said, out of 150,000 card readers, less than 500 failed. So moving forward, INEC must address all the logistical problems come May 11, so that April 11, so that there will not be excuses. If NURT is not working, find alternatives. We must improve. The whole world is watching. And I think moving forward, even issues of card reader, I still support using card reader April 11. Well, let's find out what went wrong with the ones that went wrong. We must move towards an electronic system that will eliminate human error.
You support him, what he says. So what's wrong with changing the Electoral Act if it's not serving its purpose at the moment?
Oh, well, basically, the Electoral Act can be proposed for change.
No, that's with respect to the announcement of results for the presidential elections.
The electronic vote, which is completely banned under the Act.
Let's take it one by one. You start first.
The process that we have now, there is a law that guides it. Let's talk about what we are doing now. Because you'll find out that there is constitution reform process that went through the National Assembly. It's waiting for the assent of the president. There are proposals for reform in that one. There is the confab, the report of the confab. There are electoral reform. So moving forward, there will be, we'll learn lesson. When we have gone through this process, normally what should happen is that there should be electoral reform. If that is one of the weaknesses in the system, by all means, let's bring about it. But going forward, I think we must be able to get the issues right. And INEC also should get it right. If it is a card reader that is failing, let's face up to the fact that the percentage, but if this is the percentage of failure, 0.25 compared to 150,000?
0.025.
0.025, then part to the card reader system. But logistically, I think INEC need to do much more than what it has done so far.
Okay, that's
What's
where...
your take?
Well,
sorry,
okay. Yeah, let's rest, I think.
What's your take on that?
The fact of card readers, even if it is 0.001, should not make us jettison the technology. We should seek how to improve it.
So we should go for e-voting.
Technology must drive the
then
process.
your thoughts.
I'm a bit worried about why people shouldn't be able to vote simply because they changed locations. I think that the card readers, the PVCs, for instance, should be dynamized in such a manner that even if you are no longer in Ikeja and you move to Lekki, you ought to be able to vote. So they need to centralize their database in such a manner that once you insert the PVC into the card reader, your biometrics appear. It shouldn't matter simply because you changed locations. Because, you see, I say this because they keep analogizing by saying that the PVCs are not different from ATMs. But I can use my ATMs wherever I go. But I can't seem to use the PVCs once I leave the polling unit. I think they can dynamize the technology in such a way
so
that
that still speaks to the law again.
Yes. Yes, so they can go back to the manufacturers to say, look, people are constantly moving from place to place.
So does that suggest that there are a number of things we need to change? Because, I mean, still the same question you did ask, what's wrong with changing the law if it's not serving its purpose? Now you've talked about decentralizing announcement of results, and now people voting where they change their location.
If people are moving from Ikeja, if the people registered in Ikeja, and on voting day they find themselves in Lekki, there is nothing in the 21st century that should forbid them from casting their vote.
So nobody opposes, I mean, changing the Electoral Act if we have to decentralize.
You see, the thing is that we have to understand that law reform is a process. And there must be reason. You just don't wake up and say, oh, we want to change all everything.
No, we're expecting that if three of you agree that this is something credible enough to look at, can we have it changed by 2019?
It is possible.
Well, if we
gather enough reason,
if we got, there should be a basis for this.
Reason.
That's why we need to get a feedback. Let's have a final report on election 2015, and let's look at the lapses and where there is need for law reforms. INEC himself will even present law. There are so many law reforms presented by INEC to the National Assembly that have not seen the light of day. So if there is need for law reform, INEC should be able to present. And commentators and, even Politicians will be interested in such law reforms.
So we have a verdict. Right. We have a verdict. Let's change that.
Yes, because
against 2019.
Accommodate electronic voting process.
Okay.
Now the INEC will now look for how to get the technology to drive that process.
Since we already have the card readers.
Enable it now.
Okay, Professor Yulowo Yewo is a former Dean, Faculty of Law, University of Lagos, Channel CV consultant. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chiman Naji, a legal practitioner, also a professional in politics, also Channel CV's consultant. Thank you for coming on as well. Dr. Austin Tam George is Director, Institute of Communication Studies in Lagos. Thank you for coming on this
Thanks
today.
for having me.
Well, there you go. That's it for this segment. We'll be back in just a moment to continue our continuing coverage on elections. Nigeria 2015 returns after the break.